Hello guys, Chris here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing the Radeon RX 9060 XT 16GB GPU in GTA 5 Enhanced, this time with FSR frame generation. This one is the XFX Swift Gaming Pro version of the card. I'm running it with the latest AMD drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs here as usual in Tech Power-Up's GPU Z, and over on the left I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 7 9800X 3D and 32GB of RAM just to avoid CPU bottlenecks. Let's get into it, shall we? And here we have it. The game was running in the background, that's why Task Manager looked a lot busy, but let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 1440p resolution, utilizing the maximum ray tracing settings preset with a couple of adjustments down here. I maxed out all of the settings that aren't ray tracing and motion blur as well. And back up here on the ray tracing settings, I have this one disabled because, well, I better show it to you right now. Whenever that setting is enabled and you go into a shadowy area like under the bridge there or over here, the frame time graph is a bit crazy and it drops our 1% lows a lot and it's just too unstable. Even with the frame generation enabled, it doesn't work very well here with this GPU. I don't know why. But disabling that option fixes it completely, and as you can see, it is now buttery smooth without that option enabled. No problems, no slowdowns in shadowy areas. So that's why I have disabled this option right here, second ray traced global illumination bounce. Finally, on the frame scaling, I'm using AMD FSR4 native AA at the moment, so this is still native resolution, just utilizing the anti-aliasing. And in my opinion, in this particular title, FSR4 actually looks better than DLSS 4. It's pretty insane because, well, it's probably the only game when that happens. Usually FSR4 is very close to DLSS, but it does often lose by a little bit. It looks often like DLSS 3 or 3.5 looked. DLSS 4 has a bit of an edge, but in this particular title, first of all, there is no ghosting whatsoever, whereas with DLAA, even with DLSS 4, it has a bit of ghosting below the car, so that's a bit of an issue there on the DLSS front, and I wish to see it solved. And aside from that, in terms of the sharpness that you get out of your image, it's basically indistinguishable coming from DLAA and the test that I did with the 5060 Ti. Now that 5060 Ti still has a bit of an edge when it comes to the performance. I'm so sorry, people. It did perform a little bit faster than this one using the exact same settings. Actually, I turned on the second ray traced bounce with the 5060 Ti 16GB GPU, and we needed to turn it off here for stability. But yeah, the 5060 Ti is still a little bit faster, but I prefer the look of FSR4 in this particular title. So we're in for a very good experience, I think, because with quality FSR, it should perform quite a bit better than this. Right now, 56 FPS average, 41% lows, not really that impressive. Hello, Jacqueline! How's it going here today? Are you good? It's been a really long time since we've seen Jacqueline here, actually. And there's Bob. Bob is over there on the top of the hill. Wait a second, we're gonna get rid of him, and then I'll change the settings. Goodbye, Bob! Anyway, the game looks good. It's playable like this. I wouldn't really play like this. Actually, I have a video testing the 9060 XT already in this title without the frame generation, of course, because FG wasn't really here before, and I found like very high ray tracing settings, maybe with FSR quality were the adequate settings. You can watch that video, I'll link it down below in the description. Now, we're here today testing GTA 5 again because of the frame generator, as they call it in the settings. So I'm gonna turn it on here over native AA. Alright, native AA, which wasn't even getting us those sweet 60 plus FPS that you usually need to achieve low latency results. But honestly, guys, this is amazing when it comes to that input latency. I can definitely tell. I have no way to see the input latency. It's not working with the Radeon overlay, by the way. It just shows 0 milliseconds. I tried. But honestly, whenever the baseline FPS are like 50 plus, which happens very often, the averages were 56 before frame generation was enabled, it felt really snappy. Like up there, for example, but over here, going through the bushes where the FPS would drop into the low 40s and possibly even 30s here with this GPU at these settings, native resolution as well, yeah, it's a little bit off-putting, not gonna lie. So I was really impressed up there that I was seeing the input latencies that I was seeing and experiencing, but right now, inside of bushes, it gets pretty laggy, not gonna lie. Alright, so if you are just cruising around the city, driving around like I do very often in these videos, with 100 FPS especially, input lag is pretty negligible. You can still notice it compared to native frames, you know, if you were getting natively 100 FPS instead of frame generation 100 FPS, it would feel a little bit snappier, but for a game like GTA 5, even when you need to shoot at people, that was really bad though, but I don't really feel a major issue with the input lag at this point in the video. Of course, with the bushes, it was another experience because the FPS were dropping into the 70s, and then input lags would be pretty much the same as FPS 30 natively, and yeah, that doesn't feel good at all. But over here, yeah, I could definitely play like this, I could definitely enjoy the game like this, and in terms of artifacting, I can see a little bit of ghosting below the car right now, and also there is a bit of ghosting with the shadows. Because if I stop it right here and turn around, actually, yes, there we go. Take a look at the shadow of our spoiler. It is duplicated there, and the faster I go, the more noticeable that issue is. So if you're playing the game in first person, for example, there is no problems whatsoever with that. But there is still a little bit of ghosting here with FSR-FG, unfortunately, which was also there with DLSS FG. Honestly, I couldn't really believe my eyes the first time that I tried FSR-FG in this title, and I saw it running so well. So this is one of the games where FSR-FG looks the best, and yes, it still has ghosting, but if I go out of the car, oh my gosh. And I also tested this with the 5060 Ti. The 5060 Ti was duplicating Michael's hair at this point. You could actually see silhouette just following the camera around. And over here with FSR-FG, there's none of that. And that is extremely impressive. I really hope that Rockstar fixes the DLSS implementation and also the ghosting here on the FSR-FG implementation, because, well, it could be better, of course, but it's still very smooth of an experience like this. It looks great with FSR-FG. You don't really lose fidelity whatsoever. You just add a little bit of ghosting and you smooth out your experience by a lot. 96 FPS coming from 56. Now the 1% lows are higher, and quite a bit higher than what we saw at native resolution. Well, it's still native resolution, but what we saw without frame generation. But let's go ahead and try it with quality FSR4, because quality FSR4 in this title still looks really, really good. As you can see, there might be a slight bit more shimmer, like to the top of the car, for example, but it was still there at native resolution, honestly. It's probably just the sharpening. We went from 50-ish frames per second, 40s to 50s, to 60s to 80s. And let's see it here around the vegetation. Oh boy, still drops into the 50s slightly, but it's only slightly. Look at that, 57, 58. That's awesome. Hello, Jack. How's it going, buddy? Oh, hugs and kisses to you, my friend. Drop down here into the very intensive bushes, and it doesn't seem to drop from 50 FPS. Well, it's always below 60 FPS around here. But the thing is, previously it was getting like down into the 40s, maybe high 30s as well, without frame generation, with the FSR4 native AA. And now with FSR4 quality, it looks basically the same. Even inside of vegetation, it didn't really look weird at all. In terms of the ghosting around the car, there's none of that, again, because FG is not enabled at the moment, and, well, the native super resolution or the quality of the upscaler here doesn't really introduce ghosting like DLSS does in this title. But yeah, this is really smooth of an experience now, pretty snappy, of course, because these are native frames still. But it does drop into the 50s, and I don't like to drop into the 50s. And previously, you needed to drop down the settings to very high ray tracing settings if you wanted to achieve 60 plus 100% of the time with FSR4 on quality. But this time around, we got frame generation, so you can actually leave all of those other settings maxed out and just enable FSR quality, FSR3 frame generation, and now you got 2 times frame generation here with 140 frames per second. It feels pretty snappy, obviously snappier than previously, and previously it was still playable, so now it's even more playable, I guess. No, but it is extremely smooth of an experience because I'm using a 144Hz 1440p monitor today, and yeah, it feels amazing right now. It is a high refresh rate experience. This wouldn't be possible even with the very high settings or very high ray tracing settings preset previously with FSR quality. So frame generation is pretty good here. FSR frame generation, that is, in this title. I really like it. It pairs very well here with the FSR4 on quality, with this GPU and these settings. It doesn't have a lot of artifacting, and you get this buttery smooth experience above 120 FPS pretty much at all times. Obviously, we still need to see it inside of the bushes and see how it feels as well, because obviously there will be more input lag there because of the lower frame rates. But yeah, this is a very, very good experience so far. Just driving around the city, high refresh rate, looking amazing. Also, I get a lot of comments asking me about how can you keep the temperatures on this GPU so cool. I am running a custom fan curve, but with its default fan curve from factory with this XFX model, it makes the GPU run at like maximum 51 or 52 degrees Celsius. It's pretty insane. So really good cooler basically, and a little bit of an aggressive stock fan curve get you these low temperatures, and also lowish power consumption. I guess this is low these days, right? Anyway, around here, very intense bushes. We're dropping into the 90s, maybe 80s at times. Still feels snappy, not as snappy as 144 FPS or 120 plus like previously. You can tell the difference once again, but it doesn't bother me, and it wouldn't bother me at all, even in multiplayer. If I was trying to shoot other people, maybe if you were inside of a bush, you would be at a little bit of a disadvantage there, but it's still totally playable, very snappy. The one thing that DLSS frame generation still has over this is the snappiness feel, maybe because of NVIDIA Reflex. You can actually go here to the gaming tab in the Radeon overlay. To bring this up, you press Alt-R. Enable Radeon anti-lag here, and it should be a little bit better, but honestly, I don't really feel much of a difference. The last time that I did this, I even restarted the game and so on, thinking that it didn't apply, maybe because I was testing it over FSR4 native resolution, but over here with the higher refresh rates, I think I can tell a little bit more of a difference with the anti-lag enabled. But yeah, as I was saying, the NVIDIA frame generation still feels a little bit snappier than even this with Radeon anti-lag enabled at the same time. So there's a bit of an edge there. Does it matter though? Definitely not. These are already really good baseline FPS from like 50 to 70 most of the time, or even 80 sometimes. Around here it would drop into the 50s, and we're getting like 100 still. Lighting changes a little bit, also affect your FPS, but yeah, still feels snappy, still drops into the 90s basically around here. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit better inside of the bushes there with the Radeon anti-lag enabled, so remember to enable it to have a little bit less input lag. But again, even without that setting enabled, it feels great. And it feels responsive, and the only big issue that I have here is with the ghosting that you get, especially from the shadows. Like, you can see a line on the back of the car on the ground. Yeah, it's very noticeable here. That's pretty distracting, not gonna lie. Maybe if you use a lower FOV, but no, even with a lower FOV, it's still there. So that needs fixing. So that's been it. Thanks very much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh boy, come on. Okay, I'm fine. Somehow I'm fine. But yeah, this is it, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one very soon. And as always, love you all. Bye-bye.